reader. I'm just delighted to have you here, Nin. This is just such a wonderful gift that you're giving us by being here. Nin Andrews is the author of 15 collections of poetry. Her poems have appeared in many literary reviews and anthologies, including Plowshares, Agni, the Paris Review, The Best of the Prose Poem, and 4 volumes of Best American Poetry. Um, I cherish those volumes, and getting into those is such a victory, and you've done it 4 times. Her poetry has been translated into Turkish, performed in Prague, and anthologized in England, Australia, and Mongolia. Her book, Son of a Bird, a memoir in prose poems, was published by Etruscan Press in April of 2025. Thank you so much for being here, Nin. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. It really, I'm just so excited. It's, I'm actually a little nervous. And my puppy just found me, so she's at my feet. So hopefully, if I have to take a break, you'll know why. Um, I thought I had her blacked out, but she discovered that anyway. But I wanted to start by thanking Dustin Brookshire for inviting me to read with him tonight. It is such a huge honor. Dustin, as I am sure many of you listening know, is one of a kind. I mean, he's a force. Not only a brilliant and witty poet, he also works his ass off for the rest of us, celebrating the entire poetry community, tirelessly giving of his time and his talents. Actually, I don't know if he sleeps or not. With all those anthologies, his Precious Life series, his social media posts, his generative workshops. I know I'm missing a lot, but let's just say you just do a tremendous service to the poetry community. And I mean, I seriously, I just don't know how you do it. And so I know I'm not alone in feeling this gratitude. If we weren't on Zoom, I would propose a toast, but anyway, just a round of applause would be great. Yeah, so um, phew. So, like I said, I'm a little nervous to be reading with Dustin. I mean, you are a serious force. Yeah, anyway. So I'm going to start reading tonight with a poem I admire by the poet Emily Fragos. It's called Unrest. At the shelter, the cats are kept in glass enclosed cases with just enough room to stand, walk a few steps, and eat. But strangers come on weekends to adopt them, take them to larger rooms and give them new names. James, Tabitha, Snowball, Moliere, so you would never know how they began their lives in abuse, grave hunger, and deprivation, or what strange turbulence lies coiled up inside their bodies as they float to the top of warm stone walls or sleep in a lone patch of sun on the newlywed's bed. So I chose this poem in part because it's a beautiful example of just a serene little prose poem that sneaks up on you like a cat. But also, it speaks to me. I feel as if I am one of those stray cats in the poem, as are many poets and writers I know, that coiled up inside each of us is a story waiting to be told. I think the first time I became aware or really aware of that story, this wanting to be told when I was in college, which brings me to the opening poem in the book. It started when I was in college after I left the family farm. This habit I have of keeping a book inside my chest, an illustrated text complete with drawings, photos, fantasies, memories, poems, old letters. But no one has ever read it. I suspect everyone has one, that they're as common as prayer books left in churches with black moleskin covers. In dreams, I find myself turning the pages, folding the corners, underlining passages. I can still see it in the morning when I wake, but of course all the words are backwards, and in the light they drift away like schools of tiny black fish. Like, isn't that always the way? I mean, you wake up with a dream or a poem, it's right there, and you just get out of bed. I mean, you don't even brush your teeth for Christ's sake, and it's swimming away, and you're like running after it with a pen. It's crazy. Um, So, just to give you a little background on myself, I grew up on a farm in Charlottesville, Virginia, not far from where I live now. My mom was a dairy farmer and a classics scholar and was also on the autism spectrum. My dad was an architect and a gay man who was kicked out of the Navy for having an affair and then went through some kind of 1950s version of therapy and married my mom. Together, they somehow managed to have 6 children in 9 years, children that were like those stray cats in Emily Fragos's poem. We experienced a fair amount of abuse, deprivation, and turbulence, which my parents were aware of. So when it became clear to them that I was going to be a writer, they were really worried that someday I'd write a memoir and expose them. So when my first book, The Book of Orgasms, was published back in 1995, they were both horrified and immensely relieved. As my mother put it, at least it's not about us. Um, so I'm going to read 3 poems in a row, just to give you a picture of the farm where we grew up, where I grew up. Sorry, for some reason. The past is gone. The past is gone and you can't get it back, my father always said. But I want to tell him you can still visit. The farmland is there, and my mother's shadow lingers in the doorway of the stone house. I can see her now, tilting her head, as if listening for the songs of the heifers in the fields, the horses in their stalls, the Rottweilers and beagles in the front yard under the tulip poplars. The 30 stray cats in the hayloft are sleeping in the sun, the 6 sows in the sty before we ate them one by one. The Andalusian rooster and his 9 hens before the red fox picked them off, running across the alfalfa field each morning with a fresh kill in his mouth. Gone too is the parakeet my father kept in the tack room, the parakeet that died from heat stroke or lack of water and once a peanut, and was always replaced by an identical yellow-green budgie who dehydrated or was cooked on a July day so hot the barn felt like a frying pan with the lid on tight. After a while, I never knew which parakeet was in the cage, Tony or Tanya or Tina or Teensy or Tallulah. And there were the bees my father kept in wooden hives that flew through the holes in our screens, circling the lamps and ceiling lights, the black racers and rat snakes that slithered across the floorboards in our attic. Snakes, according to my mother, were better than the Orkin man at keeping the rodent population down. I lay awake at night listening to the swish swish overhead, the sound like ladies' skirts sweeping the floor as they danced. So, people ask me a lot of times, like, why did you put your memoir in prose poems? And the answer is, I actually think prose poems and the memoir, it's a really they kind of okay, prose poems match the way my memory works. They're like little slides. I guess I'm aging, telling you how old I am. I don't know if you remember or if people here know what a Kodak slide is. Little film in between in this little cardboard thing, and you shine the light through it. And this whole scene goes up on the wall, but it's surrounded by darkness, which is all the things that you forgot. And so we used to have drawers and drawers of these slides in our house, and they would get out of order, and you put them up, and then you'd click through a slideshow, and I feel like that's the way my memory is too. It's all out of order, and I try to make it make sense, you know. And so if I were to sit down and try to make everything link, it doesn't actually mirror. It wouldn't mirror the way my mind sees it or remembers it at all. So the next poem. Again, giving you a sense of place. Excuse me. I can get some water. Our house began as a stone square. My father, an architect, added 2 wings onto it to accommodate the ever-expanding family. By the time I, the last child of 6, arrived, it was shaped like a U. Children's bedrooms were on 2 sides of the U so we could look out our windows and see each other getting dressed. "I see you naked," one sister would call out through an open window. Another yelled back, "I see you in your polka-dotted underpants." From 7 to 8:50, I watched my sisters doing their homework, framed in the yellow light. At 9 o'clock sharp, the house went dark, the day ending with a flick of the switch, like a movie without credits. I lay back in bed and listened to the night sounds, Horses kicked their stall doors. Tree frogs clung to the window screens and sang to one another. Owls screeched and swooped over the fields, and the rooster crowed and crowed. My father always said that was because he was an Andalusian and came from the wrong time zone. The only time the lights came back on in the night was when one of us took sick. I'd sit up in bed and listen after a sister cried out, "I don't feel good." My mother never woke. She slept through screams, thunderstorms, howling dogs, ringing phones, strangers, and policemen knocking on the door. My father, half asleep, drifted into our bedroom on sock feet. In one hand, he held a glass of water, in the other, a Bayer aspirin. He believed in Bayer, owned stock in the company, said it cured anything: nausea, diarrhea, flu, canker sores, nightmares, pink eye, insomnia. "Take this," he'd say, "you'll feel much better." If one pill didn't work, he'd give us another. I can still feel that little pill entering my bloodstream like a tiny white tooth. When I was really young, I was raised by a nanny. She's my earliest memories. And when she died, my father dropped me off in the barn. So I was raised after that, I was with the farmhands. My nanny's name was Mary. After Mary left one day and never returned, it was years before I learned she was dead. My mother dropped me off at the barn with the one-armed farmhand and Korean war vet, Mr. Shaver. "If a farmhand can look after heifers, he can look after you too," she said, before driving off in a cloud of dust. Mr. Shaver leaned against the red farm truck, smoking, and eyed me up and down. "Now what are we going to do with you?" he asked, and I started to sob. He patted my head. "Aw, hush now. It's all right, little gal. Look, I got something for you." He slid his artificial arm out of his sleeve and handed it to me, showed me how to screw in the fork and knife attachments, fishing dirty marshmallows out of his pocket with his oil-stained hand. I sat in the grass and stabbed the marshmallows with the fork and knife, and watched Mr. Shaver's son, Bud, muck stalls. Mr. Shaver smoked Marlboros or chewed on the sweet ends of meadowgrass and talked. He asked me, did I want to toss horseshoes or learn to blow tunes on a pop bottle? And was Jesus my friend? I shook my head and held on to his arm, rocking it like a doll baby. Um, I loved the farmhands, loved hanging out with them, but there was at times an element of danger, as this next poem will tell you. The first time I heard the word fuck was an afternoon in April 1966. A spring day so hot all the tulips lost their petals at once and blew across the alfalfa field. The beagles lay under the poplar trees, panting, didn't even lift their heads when I whistled. I'd just come home from school and was still wearing my uniform. A plaid kilt and navy socks, my button-down blouse sticking to my back. Bud was mucking out horse stalls. I didn't know it was his last day before he left for boot camp, then Vietnam. That I'd never see him again. He handed me the pitchfork. "Give me a hand," he said. "I'm about done in." He leaned against the door jamb and watched me spear manure balls. "You know it's my birthday," he asked. "I'm 18 now." "Happy birthday," I said. "What you gonna do about it?" "Gonna fuck my gal," he said with a grin. "Then I'm gonna fuck your sister Sal." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a picture of Marilyn Monroe. She was bent over, her eyes shut tight, the wind filling her skirt, exposing her bare legs. I didn't know who it was, who the picture was of, and I'd never heard the word fuck before. I tossed my ponytail and stuck out my tongue like it was no big deal. "Nuh-uh," I said. "You're nothing but a big fat shithead," and crumpled the picture in my hands. He punched me then so hard I felt my teeth coming loose when I ran back to the house. That night my father put his fingers in my mouth and said, "Your teeth are hanging on tight. You just need to gargle. You'll be all right." I showed him the picture of Bud's gal. "That's Marilyn Monroe," he said and shook his head. "She killed herself ages ago." I stared at her hard, that look on her face like a warning, like she was leaning forward behind bars. "Bite me," she hissed. I wanted to, but my mouth hurt so much. I licked my swollen lips and tasted blood and salt. I spat and spat again. Marilyn, I said, this is all your fault. So, in the summers, usually our family went to Maine, and my mother went to Maine with the family, and my dad stayed home. And one year I got sick, so I got to stay home with Dad, which I really liked because we drank a lot of whiskey together. I loved whiskey back then, and so did my dad. So this one is called 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock was our cocktail hour. My father and I would sit outside, he in his pale summer suit and tie after a day at the office, and I in a flowered shirt and shorts, leaning my chin on my freckled knees, watching bats dive bomb mosquitoes. Lots of sugar, I'd call out as my father poured our drinks, stirring the amber liquid with his finger. He said developing a taste for liquor is an important social skill, something important to have for the future, sort of like an appreciation for classical music. Sometimes he'd put Peter and the Wolf on the stereo and open the windows so we could listen to the story along with the songs of the cicadas and katydids. I'd sit back, sucking hard on my straw every time the French horn began, and Peter left the garden gate open. I watched darkness bleed into the sky as the wolf slunk behind the trees. So the next poem is about discovering my dad was gay. I was 9 years old at the time, and I had been searching the house for where Santa hid his presents. Um, when I came across these old love letters my father had received from a former lover. Um, Home alone when I was 9 years old, I found in the back of my father's closet a box of love letters from a naval officer, the pages soft as tissue paper, the words faded and barely legible, each letter closing, I will never forget you, Benjamin. My heart is yours. Between the pages was a black and white photo of a naval officer. On the back of one, the date 1944, inscribed, with love, your Kenny. The officer smiled at the camera, his face white, overexposed. And when I asked my mom about the letters, she shrugged. That man was the reason your father was dishonorably discharged from the Navy. Of course, he kept his job. A lot of men have affairs with other men, especially when they're in the service. It's simply what happens in the military. In more enlightened warrior societies like ancient Sparta, men were expected to take male lovers. Their love made them stronger on the battlefield, sort of like Achilles and Patroclus in the Iliad, which I read aloud to you at the dinner table. So that was one of the great things about my mom. She had studied with Richard Lattimore, a well-known translator of the Iliad and the Odyssey. She read those books to us in the womb. And so she compared everything to Greek mythology uh, or her heifers. Those were the two metaphors that she relied on. Um, and also, as you can tell, she had a mind of her own. She wasn't, I think that's the gift of autism. She wasn't influenced by what the social norm was of the time. So this is an example of my mom. I'll read. It's called My Mother Teaches 4-H with a photo of Miss America. Consider this photo of Miss America, my mother instructed my 4-H class. She's a model girl from Northern European stock with blue eyes, clear skin, rosy cheeks, and blonde hair tied back in a ribbon or a headband to show off her pretty face. Notice how Miss America is slender, but not too slender. Tall, but not too tall. She might take ballet lessons to improve her posture so that she walks gracefully with her shoulders pressed back, her neck long, her young but promising chest pressed forward and displayed in modest yet tastefully revealing clothing. In public, she is trained to smile and laugh easily, showing off her even white teeth when she says, "Yes, please, and thank you so very much." Her fine manners and good health are esteemed social values. A show cow, much like this young woman, is an ideal specimen of her breed, with nice coloring, ideally white with reddish-brown spots, arranged in a pleasing pattern, a robust but not too robust frame and good symmetry, her tail placed equidistant between her hip bones and curry-combed to show that it is shiny and not coarse. Trained to walk calmly around a show ring, she stops to pose, with her legs spread evenly apart and firmly planted, her head lifted so the judge can see the smooth line from her long shaved neck to her shoulders and ribs and onto the withers and the hook and pin bones. One hind leg is placed approximately 6 inches in front of the other, in order to show off the width, depth, and tip placement of her well-shaped udder. She eats grass and grains and when mature weighs approximately 1,200 pounds. One day, this ideal specimen will produce an ample milk and calf crop. The model bull my father, sorry, the model bull my mother added is of little use. All a dairy farmer really needs from a bull is best kept in cold storage. So, um, I'll close with one more. Oh, um, one more poem about my mother. It's called Little Lesbians. I was in 6th grade when I curled Stephanie Combs' hair around my colored pencils in English class. My teacher, Mrs. Ward, tapped me on the shoulder with her orange fingernails. Come with me, she hissed and pulled me into the hallway. You have to stop touching that girl's hair. I'm beginning to worry you're a lesbian. She sent a note home that day, carefully tucked in an envelope, with the inscription, a private matter for Mrs., not Mr. Hayward, to discuss with Nin. Heavens, my mother said, tossing the note in the garbage. All little girls are lesbians. Were you a lesbian? I asked. Was a little lesbian, she said. I had crushes on girls, but I wasn't really lesbian. How do you know? I asked. She shrugged. It's just like the heifers. They start humping each other in the springtime. Cows are lesbians? I asked. It's genetic, she shrugged. Some of us get more of the lesbian and some less. Time will tell how much of the lesbian you possess. How will it tell? My mother sighed, her silver blue glasses sliding down her nose. If you are in your 20s and you still want to play with Stephanie's hair, well then, you're a lesbian. Not a hairdresser? My mother stared at me blankly. I do hope you're not a hairdresser.
Thank you very much, Nin. That was truly a wonderful reading, and I'm really anxious to go back and reread some of those and hear them again. I'll hear them in your voice now as I read them. So thank you very much. Wonderful. Very well received.